Hi, I'm Raman Mehta. I work in ActionAid India. I'm based in New Delhi and currently in Bonn for the 2 weeks of the UNFCCC negotiations. I'm following the LCA discussions, and today in the morning we had a discussion on the shared vision of a global deal to be negotiated in Cancun and beyond. Now, one of the aspects of today's discussion that is quite striking is that despite the fact that you have this uh, Copenhagen Accord noted by the COP at Copenhagen with very low ambition in terms of both mitigation as well as financing, which was finally associated with by about 130 countries. The discussions today on shared vision were very different in the sense that there's a whole set of countries, especially the AOSIS and the LDC countries, that are asking, not just asking, demanding uh, more ambition in the global deal. So they're asking for higher numbers on mitigation. They are talking about more financing to be made available for both adaptation and mitigation uh, in developing countries. And there is a push for greater ambition towards achieving a 1.5 degrees target rather than 2 degree global goal. Well, the initial statement by the G77 representative itself was uh, was very positive in terms of the various issues that they want addressed in the shared vision. Uh, they wanted higher numbers for mitigation by developed countries. They wanted more money to be put on the table for action in developing countries. They wanted uh, uh, democratic governance of the financial institutions that are to be set up. They wanted greater access to technology. They did not want the rich countries to start taking trade related countermeasures against developing countries in return for taking action on climate change and so on. So there was, well, Philippines started off uh, on behalf of G77. There was follow up by uh, by there was follow up by countries from Africa. Many countries from Africa followed through with similar demands, including, I think, I don't remember exactly, I'm sorry. But then there were also countries like Grenada, which wanted better ambition, greater ambition in the shared vision reflected in the shared vision document. There was also, of course, Bolivia, which demanded greater action from the global powers. The difficulty is that it's, as usual, the developing countries which are at the receiving end. So that was in the LCA discussions, uh, which was the positive thing, like I said, is that despite the fact that many countries have associated themselves with the Copenhagen Accord, which in terms of the ambition for action is very disappointing, there are countries that have more hope from this process in terms of an eventual outcome. And that's very encouraging. And what's also encouraging is that these countries especially are engaging very aggressively in the process. Having said that, like I was saying earlier, there needs to be a better response from the richer countries, which is not yet forthcoming. However, we understand from a briefing that was done by the US delegation last evening that the positions that they are talking about on the floor in front of everybody are not cast in stone, and we understand that there are some flexibilities there. And hopefully, as negotiations progress, these flexibilities will come into play, and there will be greater accommodation of developing country concerns. Apart from that, there was a briefing today which was very interesting by the EU on the fulfillment of their commitments on fast start finance. Uh, the they reported that they have pledges so far that meet the objectives of fast start finance, the commitments that the EU has in terms of their fair share of fast start finance. There are various ways in which they are trying to identify what is the amount of money that is due in addition, and therefore, to that extent, in terms of, say, fulfilling of the promises that the rich countries made in Copenhagen, there is an attempt to try and meet their obligations as well as the aspirations that developing countries have from developed countries, especially for adaptation. And so that's another positive aspect. There is a second session that just happened on the NCA, which I wasn't there all the time. But again, I understand that there is considerable pressure from developing countries to persuade the developed countries to have better targets for mitigation put on the table, better than what they had pledged at Copenhagen. That's another positive sign in terms of the engagement the developing countries have with this process. That's all for the day, I suppose, and thanks a lot for having me. Bye.